Here and give us your rewritten joke. Yes, sir. Come on up. What's your name?
Rick.
Ray?
Rick.
Rick. What Toastmaster Club?
Oh, Winter Haven.
Winter Haven. Use the microphone there and tell us how you would have personalized that joke.
I knew it was time for me to go on a diet when I was lying on my bed doing stretching exercises. I was lying on my side and saw this huge watermelon on the bed next to me.
You got another one? Anyone else like to try it? All right, I think you see how it works. Step number 4. Practice, practice, practice. Now this seems intuitive. But how many times have you worked for weeks on a speech? You've rehearsed it, you've rewritten it. You were so proud of the speech. Then the night before you deliver it, you realize that it needs some humor. It's pretty boring. So you grab one of those joke books, you find a joke that's hopefully on point, you stick it in there, and you go to bed thinking, I've got a winner. The next morning, you give that speech, you get to that joke, and because you haven't rehearsed it, what happens? You could have drawn the punchline, right? That's why you practice. Unrehearsed humor loses its impact because it calls attention to itself. And how many of you here have ever forgotten a punchline? Did it happen tonight, by the way? Yeah? Darren LaCroix, the 2001 world champion, said great speeches are not written, they are rewritten. And the same thing applies to humor. Effective humor requires the same commitment. Lots of rehearsal and stage time. Try your jokes out on your family and friends first. See if they get the reaction you think they are going to get. Oh, let's back up a second because the importance of rehearsal. The minister at our church years ago was constantly being criticized by the elders for not being a very entertaining preacher. Mother's Day was coming up, and the preacher decided he was going to turn over a new leaf and use some humor in his sermon. He found what he thought was a funny line in a book, and the line was, "Some of the happiest days of my life were spent in the arms of another man's wife, my mother." This was indeed a clever line, wasn't it? And so he put it in the speech. Now, the two problems. Number one, he failed to rehearse it, to practice it. And number two, he forgot to tell his wife that he was going to use it. So here he is on Mother's Day, blazing through the sermon. He gets to that fateful point in the speech where he is to use this funny line, and he starts right into it. Some of the happiest days of my life were spent in the arms of another man's wife. And then he froze. The punchline eluded him. Glanced at his wife, and she is really upset. And he panics, and he thinks to himself, if I say it over again, maybe it'll come to me. Some of the happiest days of my life were spent in the arms of another man's wife. And for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. Fellow Toastmasters, that's why you rehearse humor. And step number 5, avoid the pratfalls of humor. And there are many minefields out there when you attempt it. Humor to avoid, obviously, off-color stories. And yet, so often at Toastmasters, we'll hear a member try to slip in something a little blue. As many times as we've preached not to do that in our meetings, it comes through. Ethnic, sexist, or exploitative jokes. No way. Now, here's a little tip. You can rewrite any of those. Tell them on yourself. Now, you're fair game. And they're much funnier when you can kid yourself. Politically incorrect humor. Puns. Why do we not want puns in our speech? What's the natural reaction of the audience when you tell a pun? Groans. Is that what you want when you're speaking? Groans? I know they can be funny. If you don't pay your exorcist, you get repossessed. I know that. They seem to get them quicker over here. But see, she groaned. She groaned, you groaned. That's why we don't use puns. They're called intellectual jokes, but they can bomb. And of course, the ultimate disaster would be reading a joke. So that's humor to avoid. Remember, don't explain your humor. When you use bomb-proof humor, you don't have to explain it because they don't know it's humor. They just know that you're making a point. Some speakers say don't laugh at your own jokes. Although for some of you, that may be the only laugh you get. I don't think that's a hard and fast rule. And also, don't apologize. The audience is not going to know you didn't deliver. Let's say you are in table topics, though, and you try to be funny and bomb. Or you're asked to tell a joke at a wedding reception or in a social situation and you bomb. It's nice to have some rehearsed savers, snappy comebacks for when that embarrassing situation happens. I was giving a speech once and at the district conference, and the microphone kept flopping and hitting the lectern with a thud, and I would raise it up and the mic would crash back down again with a thud. And after about the 4th or 5th time of this, I finally said, "Hey, we've got a loose nut on the microphone." That was a rehearsed, snappy comeback that I used to get a laugh out of an embarrassing situation. Let's say your joke does bomb. What can you do about it? This is in a situation where they know you're trying to tell a joke. There's dozens of snappy comebacks. In fact, they're in that book, The Best of Writers Top 10. This book is loaded with snappy comebacks that you can use in any of these embarrassing situations. Joke bombs, you could say, "Hey folks, if you think I'm too serious now, wait till I drop the humor." Right? There's a dozen more like that. Or you could say, "This microphone seems to be picking up the jokes but not the laughter." It's a good one. What do you do with hecklers? We ever had hecklers? My strategy of dealing with a heckler is to let them go on until they start to annoy the rest of the audience. You'll get annoyed with them almost immediately, but have patience, because if they persist, they're eventually going to turn off the rest of the room. Then you can use your mastery of humor to embarrass them and get a laugh at their expense, and that will usually work. Now, a comedian in Las Vegas told a story about a lady in a wheelchair in the front of a casino nightclub where he was a stand-up comedian. And she was heckling him unmercifully, on and on, until finally he walked off the stage, he took her wheelchair, he wheeled her out of the room, locked the door, came back to the lectern and said, "I wish all hecklers came with wheels." Hopefully you won't have to do something that drastic. All right, there's your 5-step bomb-proof humor strategy. Don't announce humor. Use humor that reinforces a key point. Make it believable. Practice, practice, practice. And avoid the pratfalls. All right, we're going to do some exercise. We're going to show you right now how to write your own original humor. And original humor is the best because it's yours, it's your story. You created it. It's not likely that they have heard it before when you create it. And it's important because you may not be able to find the right joke in the book that you want. So here's how you would do this. Here's how you would use one of the 25 humor types. We covered 10 of them tonight, but let's say